Hi, what's up guys? Sam Taggart here, and I'm going to go over some amazing tips on becoming more emotional resilient, be more gritty. Like, how do you go build this tenacity inside of you in the school of hard knocks? Whether that's knocking on doors, whether that's knocking on opportunities, business, whatever that looks like, I'm gonna teach you 4 simple hacks on becoming more emotional resilient. Now, if you like this YouTube channel, subscribe and share these videos with other people that need to become more grinders, more door knockers, more emotional resilient people, and check out these videos. So the first tip on being emotional resilient, and I'm gonna go through a few tips, is practice objectivity. So you have to ask yourself, okay, this happened equals objective. Is this good or bad? That's subjective. So, it's the perceiving eye that's weak and it's the observing eye that's strong. So if we say, okay, my perceiving eye says this is bad, it's like, well, that's just your perception, because if you took another lens or you took another viewpoint or you saw yourself in 3 years and looked back, it might not be bad. That's all subjective to what your opinion is. And so if you take it as an observing eye, take a second, say, okay, what's happening to me? Like, I'm getting rejected, I'm getting a lot of no's, I haven't made money in a week, like whatever that problem that you're running into is, and you saw it from an observing eye and saying, okay, that's what's happened and that's what is. Now I get to then make some decisions based on facts, not based on how I'm feeling. And so there's Epictetus said, don't let force of impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say to it, hold on a minute, let me see who you are and what you represent, and let me put you to the test. And I love that quote. And then Warren Buffett said, you will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. The true power is sitting back and observing things with logic. True power is restraint. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass. And so this is coming from one of the richest men in the world. And it's like the ability to breathe, pause, let things come to pass, and not allow other things to control you. That is the power of practicing objectivity. So it's time to really check in with every event, mishap, situation, and result, and saying, okay, am I letting myself be fragile, or do I get to be anti-fragile in this moment? Tip number 2 is train your response system. It takes intentional practice to train your amygdala to how to respond with what you want. So the amygdala is that core neural system that processes threats, right? So it's either fight, flight, or freeze, and what's interesting is it's actually 2 times faster than your neocortex. And so the military trains your amygdala, or like you take like Alex, the guy that did the free solo and climbed El Capitan. They literally did studies and CAT scans of his amygdala, and they said it was black because he had trained his amygdala so much not to fight, flight, or freeze, and just to do the action, climb the wall despite there not being any ropes, and free climbing El Capitan. So the military trains these soldiers because they're in a firefight and they've got bad guys coming at them. If they just freeze or flight, then the whole troop's gonna die. And so they need to test people's amygdala strength and saying, wow, can you control this lizard brain, is what they call it, and really take action based off objectivity. And so basically when they do these drills, so they do a thing called the pool comp. And if you study like Naval SEAL training, they drop these dudes or women in underwater, and they practice holding their breath. And then they practice like the scuba tank, and they'll come over your back and rip off your mask and start fighting you. So you're freaking out because you're like, I don't have oxygen. I've been holding my breath for X amount of time. And they actually do it to where you pass out. And when you're underground and you go all the way until you pass out, or you're underwater, that's a scary feeling because your body is like, I'm gonna die. I just died. I went all the way till passing out. And you at that point you think you've died, and then they'll come revive you. And it's a really scary, I'm assuming if I was in that situation, that's the question of how emotionally resilient would I be? Would I be able to withstand my mind telling my body it's gonna die, or saying, no, my body's not gonna die, my mind's just trained to tell it it's going to die, and allowing to trust this whole drill. And that's how they weed out a lot of people in these SEAL training. And, I think life weeds you out a lot like that. I think life is saying, okay, your mind's gonna say alert, 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 this is crazy, things are bad, but your body is going to either then act or not act. It's going to sit and fight or flight or run, and your body is going to make decisions. Because if I go out and knock and I go continue to do the work despite my emotional feelings, then I've now kind of separated that whole lizard brain and reactive system to just what's happening, what is objectivity. Yeah, you felt like you worked all week because you were scared of work, but you truly only worked 5 hours. And it's like, that's not that like what is objective is you worked 5 hours, but what is subjective is you feel like you worked the whole week. And we see this all the time when I coach or consult or train people. Now, the third tip is don't get stuck in what we call learned helplessness. And basically, in the book by Greg McKeown, I forget what it's called, Essentialism, he talks about, he says, the ability to choose cannot be taken away or even given away. It can only be forgotten. And so often we forget that we choose our results. And when they did a study on these dogs, and they put them in these shock systems, and they said, okay, if you press this button, so they drop them in a system and it's shocking them, and then the dog would press the button and it would turn the shock off. Well, then another dog, they'd say, okay, press the button, and it would not turn the shock off, and so he just stopped pressing the button. So then they would say, okay, cool. They would do these tests, and they'd say, okay, if we then put the button to where it would turn the shock off, would the dog try again and see if it would turn the shock off? And they would say, just press the button. And it's like, no, because it had already learned that the button doesn't do anything for him. And so in life, we get these sequences of, no's and sequences of losses that then we think that they all loop in the next door or the next opportunity in life is going to be a no, because the last 5 were no's. But we have to look at opportunities as mutually exclusive. We have to look at doors as each door is a different door. But if we lump them all together and say this whole neighborhood is shot, or we lump opportunities and say, oh, well, I've tried sales, I'm not a salesperson. You're like, well, no, you just had a few opportunities that you missed, and now you get to choose what the next one looks like. But you've just made a blanket statement to say all of these are shot and I'm just not this. And now you're labeling, which is a terrible trap to get into. And so we create these neural pathways in our brain to where it's almost like a wagon going in a muddy trail, and it just creates a deeper and deeper, deeper rut that doesn't necessarily mean is true. It just means we're stuck in that rut. And so basically, if we can practice objectivity and saying each door is a new door, each opportunity, each pass is a new pass, each shot is a new opportunity to go in. So like, I can't make these shots. So caution not to fall into this trap, because to practice power of first impressions and every opportunity, a new one, we get to eliminate this blanket statements of I'm nobody, never, like everyone. Those kind of language patterns can be a very big trap. And so be super intentional with your word choice, or else you're just shooting yourself in the foot, and it's not good. So number 4 is focus. So tip number 4 being focus. I believe emotional resilient people have an extreme ability to focus hard. Emotional resilience is this kind of proactive thought, meaning I'm cognitively thinking, meaning thinking about thinking. And when I can think about thinking, meaning I'm aware and focused on what I'm doing instead of multitasking, instead of kind of just like, what? And 20 minutes later, you're like, I just spent 20 minutes on Instagram and I totally didn't realize. That ability to just let time pass you by, let opportunities pass you by because of your inability to be present and focused is a key component to failure. So when you have the ability to visualize your future, walk through positive solutions step by step, It's this mental rehearsal is what they call it. So Red Bull athletes, I'm Sean White. I'm sitting up in front of my run, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm on a half pipe run. I'm literally like this mental rehearsal and focus is saying, okay, I'm gonna drop in here. I'm going about this fast. And on my first up, I'm gonna do my double, my 1080 or whatever the trick is. And then I'm gonna do a CAD this. And, so they're literally watching their run of their 8 tricks they're gonna do on the half pipe before it happens. And okay, I'm gonna turn my body like this, I'm gonna do this. And it's the ability for these athletes to do this mental rehearsal is critical for their ability to go out and actually make it happen. It was interesting to see how fragile our focus can be, how we can be so focused on the right things one moment and completely lose it in the next. It takes work to get in the right mindset, but it takes work to maintain it as well. I wouldn't say it's hard to achieve and maintain a fearless mind, but it does require constant attention to the reality of the moment, by Craig Manning, and he wrote the book, The Fearless Mind. So I love this quote. It says, a knight doesn't need to be told how many arrows are in his quiver. A good marksman or a good cop is like, I fired off 6 shots. I know how many this holds. And if we do and practice the same thing, it's like a player in sales or business and any performance is going to know the surroundings. They know the objections that are going to be coming up. They know the pricing, they know the packaging, they know the script, they know the opportunity that sits in front of them. And they're so dialed, just like an athlete, just like a cop or a fighter, they are so focused and so aware of their surroundings that they don't fail to have this kind of distraction from the outside world. And so to avoid that, there's a common practice that's kind of a buzzword today called dopamine fast. And a dopamine fast is when you stop using social media, sex, drugs, maybe even numbing, anything that numbs you out or distracts you, notifications, a lot of times relationships. There's dopamine fast of you are distracted by your significant other because you're so entangled into that world where you fail to jump out of that world into business world and say, boom, I've got to do X, because it's easy for them to pull you back into their stuff, which isn't bad. You can show up for them, but it's just hard to say, I have my stuff I need to do. Employees suck you out. So emotion resilient people, if you think about it, they have this ability to put boundaries around them to not get sucked into the notification world or the numbing out world or the everyone saying I got a minute. So I for the last 5 years have set my phone on silent. You won't ever hear my phone ring. Hey, we hope you got a ton out of this video. Hit the subscribe button. We'd love to hear your comments below, and we're here to provide a ton of value to help you become more of a gritty door knocker, whether that's in life, whether that's in business, whether that's in sales and fitness. Our job is to help you learn the school of hard knocks and live that knock life. So my name's Sam Taggart. Hope you enjoyed the video. We're out.